The words hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest, but I kept my face stone-cold neutral. He's sweet, but so below my level. My wife Kathy's voice carried that particular tone she used when she thought I couldn't hear her, the one dripping with condescension and barely concealed embarrassment. Her 3 girlfriends at the bistro table cackled like hyenas. Jennifer, the blonde real estate agent with too much Botox. Michelle, the divorce attorney who collected designer handbags like trophies. And Heather, Kathy's best friend since college, who worked at the same marketing firm and always looked at me like I was something stuck to her shoe. I mean, Paul's a decent guy, Kathy continued, stabbing her overpriced salad. But he sells industrial equipment to factories. Can you imagine introducing him at the country club mixer next month? More laughter. I stood frozen behind the pillar near the restroom, having overheard this character assassination purely by accident. Or maybe it wasn't an accident. Maybe some part of me knew this conversation was happening and needed to hear it. Honey, you could do so much better, Jennifer said, her voice syrupy with fake concern. You're moving up in the world. That promotion to senior account manager? You're going places. Don't let dead weight drag you down. Speaking of moving up, Michelle added with a knowing smirk, how's that new coworker of yours? Chad? He seems more your speed. I watched my wife's cheeks flush pink. Chad's just a friend. We work together on the Morrison account. Sure he is, Heather said, and they all dissolved into giggles again. My hands clenched into fists, but I forced them to relax. 15 years of marriage, and this is what I got? Public humiliation from the woman I'd supported through business school, who I'd encouraged to chase her dreams while I worked overtime to pay the bills? I walked back to their table with measured steps, my face a mask of calm. Ladies, how's dinner? Oh, Paul! Kathy's voice jumped an octave. We were just talking about the Morrison account. So boring, you wouldn't be interested. I'm sure. I pulled out my wallet and dropped 3 20s on the table. This should cover Kathy's portion. I've got an early morning. You're leaving? Kathy blinked in surprise. I leaned down and kissed her cheek, whispering just loud enough for her friends to hear. Enjoy your evening, sweetheart. Hope the company matches your standards. Then I walked out of that overpriced bistro with my head high and my heart hammering against my ribs like it was trying to escape. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The parking lot was half empty under the amber streetlights. Our neighborhood was one of those places trying desperately to be upscale. All trendy restaurants and boutique shops crammed into converted warehouses, with luxury condos sprouting like mushrooms after rain. The kind of place Kathy loved and I tolerated. I sat in my truck for 10 minutes, hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to process what I'd heard, below her level. The phrase kept echoing in my head like a broken record. My phone buzzed, a text from Heather. Paul, I'm sorry about tonight. You deserved better than that conversation. We need to talk. Interesting. Very interesting. I started the engine and drove home through the empty streets, past the abandoned factories where I'd grown up, past the dive bars and pawn shops that Kathy pretended didn't exist. This city had 2 faces, the shiny new downtown where my wife worked, and the Rust Belt reality where people like me made their living. Our house sat in the middle ground, a modest 2-story in a neighborhood that was slowly gentrifying. Kathy had picked it because it was up and coming. I'd bought it because the garage was big enough for my workshop and the mortgage was reasonable. Mrs. Deacon's kitchen light was on next door. That woman never slept, just sat by her window keeping tabs on the whole block. She waved when she saw me pull in. I waved back. Mrs. Deacon had been widowed for 20 years and treated neighborhood gossip like a full-time job. Inside, the house felt different somehow. Maybe it was just my mood, but everything looked fake now. The throw pillows Kathy had arranged just so, the abstract art she'd bought because it made a statement, the wine rack full of bottles we never drank because I preferred beer, and she was always on some new diet. I went to the garage and turned on the lights. This was my space, workbench, tools, half-finished projects, and a heavy bag hanging in the corner for when I needed to work off steam. The concrete floor was stained with oil and sawdust. It smelled like honest work, not expensive perfume and pretension. I pulled 2 beers from the mini fridge and sat on my workbench, thinking. Kathy wouldn't be home for hours. She'd milk this girl's night for all it was worth, probably hit a few more bars, maybe even invite Chad to join them. Chad. I'd met him exactly once, at the company Christmas party. Mid-30s, expensive suit, perfect teeth, and a handshake like a wet fish. He'd talked about his MBA and his 5-year plan while looking over my shoulder for someone more important to schmooze. My phone rang. Rye's name flashed on the screen. "What's up, man?" I answered. "Just checking in, you sound weird." Ryan Murphy owned O'Malley's, a dive bar downtown that served the best wings in the city and didn't care if you wore a suit or work boots. We'd been friends since high school, back when we both thought we'd conquer the world. He'd ended up pouring drinks, and I'd ended up selling machinery to factories. Not exactly conquering, but we'd survived. "Rough night," I said. "Want to talk about it?" "Tomorrow, maybe. I need to think some things through first." "All right, but if you need backup, you know where to find me." After we hung up, I sat in the quiet garage for another hour, nursing my beer and planning. Because that's what I do. I plan. I analyze problems and find solutions. It's what made me good at my job, even if it wasn't glamorous enough for my wife's taste. Kathy came home at 2 a.m., stumbling slightly as she kicked off her heels in the hallway. I pretended to be asleep when she slipped into bed, reeking of wine and guilt. "Paul?" she whispered. I didn't answer. She was gone when I woke up, off to her important job with her important friends and her important new coworker. A note on the kitchen counter. "Working late again tonight. Don't wait up." Working late. Right. I made coffee and toast, then went looking. Not snooping exactly, just paying attention for the first time in months. The laundry hamper yielded interesting results. Kathy's work clothes from yesterday, buried at the bottom, smelled like cologne. Not mine. Her laptop was password protected, but she'd always been careless with her phone. I found it charging in the kitchen, forgotten in her rush to get to work. The main phone was clean, of course, but there was a second phone hidden in her makeup bag, a cheap prepaid model I'd never seen before. 57 text messages from C over the past 3 weeks. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Paul doesn't deserve you. When are you going to tell him?" The hotel room is booked for Friday. I took pictures of everything with my own phone, then put hers back exactly where I'd found it. My hands were steady, my breathing calm. 15 years of marriage, and it had come to this. But I wasn't angry anymore. Anger was hot and stupid and led to mistakes. What I felt now was cold and calculating and infinitely more dangerous. I called in sick to work and spent the day researching. Chad Morrison, yes, that Morrison, as in the Morrison account Kathy kept mentioning. He'd transferred here 6 months ago from the company's Chicago office. Divorced, no kids, lived in one of those new luxury apartments downtown. By evening, I had a plan. Kathy came home at midnight with another story about client dinners and late meetings. I nodded and smiled and asked all the right questions, playing the clueless husband while she lied to my face. "You're being so understanding lately," she said, actually looking guilty for about half a second. "I know this Morrison account is taking up a lot of my time. I want you to succeed, honey. You've worked hard for this opportunity." She kissed my forehead like I was a faithful dog, then disappeared into the bathroom for her nightly routine. 30 minutes of creams and treatments to maintain the facade. I waited until she was asleep, then texted Heather. "You said we needed to talk. Tomorrow lunch. O'Malley's on 5th Street, noon." Her reply came within minutes. "I'll be there." The next morning, Kathy announced she was throwing a dinner party Saturday night. Just a few people from work. You don't mind, do you? Of course not. Anyone I know? The usual crowd. Maybe Chad will stop by if he's not too busy. Great. I'll pick up some good wine. She looked surprised. I wasn't usually enthusiastic about her work events. That would be wonderful. Thank you. After she left, I drove to O'Malley's. The lunch crowd was thin. A few construction workers, some retirees nursing beers and watching sports highlights. Rye was behind the bar, polishing glasses with practiced efficiency. Look what the cat dragged in, he said. You look terrible. Thanks for the pep talk. Seriously, what's going on? I'll tell you later. Right now I'm meeting someone. Heather arrived exactly at noon, looking nervous and overdressed for a dive bar. She ordered a salad and picked at it while I waited for her to start talking. I shouldn't be here, she finally said. But you are. Kathy's my friend. We've been through everything together. And yet you texted me. She sighed and put down her fork. What happened at dinner the other night was wrong. The way she talked about you, the way we all just sat there and laughed. It was cruel. People say things. I'm a big boy, I can handle it. It's not just what she said. It's what she's doing. Which is? Heather looked around the bar like she expected corporate spies to be lurking in the corners. She's having an affair, Paul. With Chad. It's been going on for 2 months. I kept my expression neutral. That's a serious accusation. I've seen them together, not just at work. Hotels, restaurants across town where they think no one will recognize them. She thinks she's being clever, but she's not. Why are you telling me this? Because you don't deserve it, and because... She paused, choosing her words carefully. Because Kathy's changed. The promotion went to her head. She thinks she's better than everyone now, including you, including me. What do you mean? I was supposed to get that promotion. I've been with the company longer, my sales numbers were better. But Kathy schmoozed the right people, made the right connections. Chad was part of that. She used him to get ahead, and now she's using him to feel important. Interesting. Very interesting. So this is about revenge? I asked. This is about justice. Kathy's playing games with people's lives. She's going to hurt you, and she's going to hurt Chad, and she doesn't care about the collateral damage. What do you want me to do about it? I don't know, but you deserve to know the truth. After Heather left, I sat at the bar nursing a beer and thinking. Rye came over during a lull. Friend of yours? My wife's best friend. Apparently not such a good friend after all. Trouble at home? I gave him the abbreviated version. Rye listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding or shaking his head. So what's the plan? He asked when I finished. I'm working on it. Whatever you need, you know I'm in. This might get messy. Good. Messy's more fun. Saturday's dinner party was a masterclass in suburban theater. Kathy spent all day cleaning and cooking, transforming our modest dining room into something worthy of a magazine spread. She wore a black dress that cost more than my monthly truck payment and enough jewelry to stock a small boutique. The guests arrived fashionably late. Jennifer and her husband Brad, Michelle and her latest boyfriend, a few other couples from Kathy's office, and Chad, looking like he'd stepped out of a catalog in his perfectly pressed shirt and designer jeans. I played the gracious host, taking coats and mixing drinks, making small talk about sports and the weather. Chad barely acknowledged me beyond a limp handshake and a patronizing smile. Paul, right? Kathy's told me so much about you. All good, I hope. Of course, she says you're in sales too. Industrial equipment. Not as exciting as marketing, but it pays the bills. I'm sure it does. He was already looking past me toward the bar cart. Dinner conversation revolved around office politics and vacation plans and the kind of mindless gossip that passed for sophistication in Kathy's circle. I contributed just enough to avoid seeming antisocial, but mostly I watched and listened. Chad sat across from me, and I could see him stealing glances at Kathy when he thought no one was looking. She was doing the same thing, their eyes meeting for just a moment before darting away. Amateur hour. "Paul, you're quiet tonight," Jennifer observed during dessert. "Just enjoying the company. It's nice to meet Kathy's colleagues." "Chad's new to town," Kathy said quickly. "He's still getting used to the local scene." "Where are you from originally?" I asked him. "Chicago. Much more cosmopolitan than here, obviously, but the company offered me a great opportunity to expand into new markets." "Must be challenging, starting over in a new place." "Not really. I adapt quickly. It's all about finding the right connections." He looked directly at Kathy when he said it, subtle as a brick through a window. After dinner, the party moved to the living room for drinks and more conversation. I excused myself to clean up in the kitchen, but really I wanted to observe from a distance. Through the doorway, I watched Chad position himself next to Kathy on the sofa. When she laughed at his jokes, she touched his arm. When he reached for his drink, his hand brushed hers. They thought they were being discreet, but it was obvious to anyone paying attention. Unfortunately, no one else was paying attention. They were all too wrapped up in their own conversations and social media posts to notice the soap opera playing out in front of them. I was loading the dishwasher when Chad appeared in the kitchen doorway. "Great party," he said. "You're a lucky man." "I think so. Kathy's really something special. Smart, ambitious, beautiful, a real catch." "She is. Must be nice being married to someone so successful. Takes the pressure off, you know?" I turned to face him, dish towel in my hands. "What do you mean?" "Just that some guys might feel intimidated, being with a woman who's climbing the corporate ladder, but you seem comfortable with it." "Why wouldn't I be?" "No reason. Just an observation." He was testing me, trying to gauge how much I knew or suspected. I gave him my best clueless husband smile. "Well, I better get back to the party," he said. "Of course, don't let me keep you." But as he turned to leave, I called out, "Chad? Yeah? Be careful with that drink. The floors can be slippery when they're wet." He looked confused but nodded and walked away. It wasn't much of a threat, but it was enough to let him know I wasn't completely oblivious. The party wound down around 11. After the last guest left, Kathy and I cleaned up in companionable silence. She seemed relaxed and happy, probably thinking she'd pulled off the perfect evening. "That went well," she said, hanging up dish towels. "Your friends are interesting." Chad seemed to fit right in, don't you think? He's certainly confident. He has to be in his position. The marketing world is cutthroat. I'm sure it is. We went to bed without further conversation. Kathy fell asleep quickly, but I lay awake staring at the ceiling, planning my next move. Monday morning brought the first phase of my counterattack. While Kathy was in the shower, I used her laptop. She'd left it open on the kitchen counter, another careless mistake. Her email was still logged in, including her work account. The Morrison account files were easy to find. Client meetings, project timelines, budget reports, and buried in the folder, personal emails between Kathy and Chad that had nothing to do with business. Can't stop thinking about Friday night. When can we get away for a real weekend? I'm tired of sneaking around. Soon. I just need to figure out the Paul situation. The Paul situation. Like I was a problem to be solved rather than a person with feelings. I forwarded the most damaging emails to an anonymous account I'd set up, then cleared the browser history and closed the laptop. Kathy emerged from the bathroom 5 minutes later, humming and completely oblivious. "You're up early," she said, kissing my cheek. "Couldn't sleep. Big presentation today." "Good luck, honey. I might be late again tonight. We're pushing hard to close the Morrison deal." "Of course you are." After she left, I called Rye. "I need a favor," I said. "Name it." "Can you get me the guest list from last Saturday's party? I want to send thank you notes." "Since when do you send thank you notes?" "Since I decided to be a better host." He laughed. "What are you really up to?" "Trust me on this one." "Fine. But when this blows up, I was never involved. That evening, I put the guest list to good use. Jennifer got an anonymous email with photos of Chad and Kathy having lunch at a hotel restaurant across town, photos Heather had provided during our second meeting. Michelle received copies of the personal emails I'd found on Kathy's laptop. I didn't send everything to everyone, just enough to plant seeds of doubt and get people talking. The results were immediate. Jennifer called Michelle, Michelle called her boyfriend, and within hours the gossip network was buzzing with speculation about Kathy's close working relationship with her new colleague. Kathy came home Tuesday night in a foul mood. "People are so petty," she announced, throwing her purse on the counter harder than necessary. "What happened?" "Office gossip. Someone's spreading rumors about Chad and me." "What kind of rumors?" "The stupid kind. Apparently we're having some torrid affair because we worked together on the Morrison account." I made sympathetic noises while internally celebrating. "That's ridiculous. People have too much time on their hands." "Exactly. It's probably Jennifer. She's always been jealous of my success." "What did your boss say?" "Nothing yet, but I'm worried he might reassign the account if the rumors get too widespread. This could ruin everything I've worked for." "I'm sure it'll blow over." But it didn't blow over. If anything, it got worse. By Thursday, half the office was whispering about the affair, and Kathy's boss called her in for a private meeting. "He's conducting an investigation," she told me that night, pacing around the living room like a caged animal. "An investigation, like we're criminals or something." "What did you tell him?" "The truth, that Chad and I are colleagues, nothing more, but someone's been feeding him information, Paul. Personal emails, photos of us at lunch meetings. Someone's trying to destroy my career." "Who would do that?" "I don't know, but when I find out, they're going to pay." The irony was delicious. Kathy was absolutely right. Someone was trying to destroy her career. She just had no idea who. Friday afternoon, she came home early with red eyes and a termination letter. "They fired me," she said, collapsing on the sofa. 15 years with that company, and they fired me over rumors and gossip." "What exactly did they say?" "Violation of company policy regarding workplace relationships. They said I had a duty to disclose any personal involvement with colleagues, especially those I supervised on client accounts." "But you said there was nothing personal." "There wasn't," she snapped. "But they had evidence, Paul. Photos, emails, text messages. Someone built an entire case against me." I sat down beside her and took her hand. "What about Chad?" "They transferred him back to Chicago, effective immediately." "I'm sorry, honey. I know how much that job meant to you." She leaned against me, and for a moment I almost felt guilty. Almost. "I don't know what we're going to do," she whispered. "The mortgage, the car payments, all our expenses. I was making twice what you earn. We'll figure it out. Maybe this is a blessing in disguise." "How can you say that?" "Maybe it's time for a fresh start. New job, new opportunities." She pulled away from me. "You don't understand. I worked so hard to get where I was. I had plans, Paul, goals, and now it's all gone because of some vindictive person with a grudge. Do you have any idea who might have done this? It had to be someone with access to my personal information, someone who knew about my lunch meetings with Chad, someone who could get into my email." She was thinking out loud, trying to solve the puzzle. I could see the wheels turning behind her eyes. "What about Heather?" I suggested. "She works at the same company." "Heather's my best friend. She would never—" Kathy stopped mid-sentence, her expression changing. "Actually, she has been acting strange lately, distant, and she was passed over for the promotion I got." Sounds like motive to me. "But she's known about Chad for weeks. Why wait until now?" "Because I asked her to wait," I thought. "Because this was all part of the plan." "Maybe she needed time to gather evidence," I said. "Or maybe she was hoping you'd come to your senses on your own." Kathy stood up abruptly. "I need to call her. I need to find out what she knows." She tried Heather's number 3 times, but it went straight to voicemail. Then she tried Chad, with the same result. "They're avoiding me," she said. "Both of them. Or maybe they're just busy. No, this is deliberate. They're hiding something. She spent the rest of the evening making calls and sending texts, trying to reach anyone who might have information about the investigation. But her former colleagues were suddenly unavailable, and her social circle had mysteriously shrunk. It's amazing how quickly people abandon you when scandal comes calling. Saturday morning, Kathy announced she was going to Chad's apartment to demand answers. "I don't think that's a good idea," I said. "Why not?" "Because you're emotional right now. You might say something you'll regret." "I'm not emotional. I'm angry. Someone destroyed my career, and I want to know who." "What if it backfires? What if he calls the police?" "Let him. I haven't done anything wrong." She left before I could stop her, which was fine because I didn't really want to stop her. This was exactly what I'd been hoping for. Kathy making desperate, irrational decisions that would only make things worse. She came back 2 hours later, even more agitated than before. "He's gone," she announced. "Moved out completely. The apartment manager said he left yesterday, didn't even give proper notice. Maybe the company relocated him faster than expected. Or maybe he's running from something. Paul, I think Chad set me up." "What do you mean?" "I think he planned this whole thing. The affair, the investigation, everything. Maybe he was working with someone at the company to get rid of me." She was grasping at straws now, trying to make sense of a situation that had spiraled completely out of her control. It was almost sad to watch. Why would he do that? I don't know. Corporate espionage? Personal vendetta? Maybe he never cared about me at all. If that's true, then you're better off without him. She looked at me with something like surprise. "You're being very understanding about all this." "About what?" "About Chad. About the affair. You haven't even asked me if the rumors were true." I met her eyes steadily. "Were they?" A long pause. Then, "Does it matter now?" "It matters to me." Another pause, longer this time. "Yes," she whispered. "It was true. I'm sorry, Paul. I'm so sorry." Finally, the admission I'd been waiting for. "How long?" I asked. 2 months, maybe 3. It just happened. I didn't plan it. "But you didn't stop it either." "No, I didn't stop it." We sat in silence for several minutes, the weight of her confession hanging between us like a lead curtain. "What happens now?" she finally asked. "I don't know," I said. "I honestly don't know." But I did know. I knew exactly what happened next. The annual Riverside Arts Festival was the biggest event on our city's social calendar. 3 days of local artists, food vendors, and live music along the waterfront, drawing crowds from all over the region. Kathy had attended every year since we'd moved here, networking and socializing with the kind of people she thought mattered. This year would be different. I'd been planning this moment for weeks, ever since I realized the festival would provide the perfect stage for my final act. Public enough to ensure maximum impact, but chaotic enough to create plausible deniability. Kathy had been reluctant to attend, given her recent unemployment and social exile, but I'd convinced her it would be good to get out of the house. "People will stare," she'd protested. "Let them stare. You have nothing to hide." Don't I? Not anymore. The truth is already out there. We arrived Saturday afternoon, parking in the overflow lot several blocks from the main festival grounds. The weather was perfect, sunny and warm with a light breeze off the river. Families with strollers, couples holding hands, groups of teenagers trying to look bored and sophisticated. Kathy wore sunglasses and kept her head down, but I could see her scanning the crowd for familiar faces. Most of her former social circle was there, clustered around the wine tent or browsing the art booths. They noticed us but didn't approach. "This was a mistake," Kathy muttered after our third awkward encounter with people who suddenly found their shoes fascinating. "We just got here. Give it a chance." We wandered through the booths, pretending to admire paintings and pottery while I waited for the right moment. The main stage featured local bands and community announcements, with an open mic session scheduled for late afternoon. I'd signed up earlier in the week using a fake name and claiming to represent a local business. The festival organizers were always happy to let sponsors say a few words, especially if it meant potential donations for next year's event. At 4 o'clock, I excused myself to use the restroom and made my way to the backstage area. The volunteer coordinator barely glanced at my fake credentials before handing me a wireless microphone. "You're on after the mayor's welcome speech," she said. "Keep it under 5 minutes." "No problem." I watched from the wings as Mayor Patterson delivered his standard festival greeting, thanking sponsors and encouraging everyone to support local artists. The crowd was relaxed and happy, maybe 300 people spread across the grass in front of the stage. Perfect. "And now," the mayor announced, "we'd like to welcome Paul Henderson from Henderson Industrial Solutions to say a few words about community partnership." I walked onto the stage with confidence, adjusting the microphone and smiling at the crowd. In the third row, I could see Kathy's confused face. She knew I'd never spoken at a public event before. "Thank you, Mayor Patterson, and thank you all for coming out to support our local arts community." Polite applause. I spotted Jennifer and Michelle near the beer tent, looking puzzled. Mrs. Deacon was sitting in a lawn chair, front and center, probably wondering why her neighbor was on stage. "I'm not here to talk about my business today," I continued. "I'm here to talk about truth, about loyalty, about what happens when the people we trust decide we're not good enough for them anymore." The crowd was paying attention now. This wasn't the usual corporate sponsor speech. 3 weeks ago, I overheard my wife tell her friends that I was below her level. That hurt, but what hurt more was discovering she was having an affair with a coworker while telling me she was working late. Murmurs rippled through the audience. I could see Kathy standing up, her face pale with shock and horror. Now, I could have confronted her privately, could have filed for divorce and handled this like a civilized adult, but where's the fun in that? Some nervous laughter from the crowd. They weren't sure if this was performance art or a genuine meltdown. Instead, I decided to give my wife exactly what she wanted, a public stage worthy of her elevated status. So here we are. Kathy was pushing through the crowd now, trying to reach the stage. Security was starting to move, but I only needed another minute. The affair cost her job, by the way. Turns out companies frown on workplace relationships, especially when they involve falsified expense reports and misused client accounts. That got their attention. I could see phones coming out, people starting to record. Her lover fled town rather than face the consequences, left her high and dry just like she left me. Funny how that works. "Paul, stop." Kathy's voice carried over the crowd noise. "But the real kicker," I said, leaning into the microphone, "is that the whole thing was orchestrated by her best friend, who was jealous about a promotion, Heather Martinez, for those keeping score at home." More gasps from the audience. This was better than reality TV. So let this be a lesson to anyone thinking about betraying the people who love them. Sometimes the person you're stepping on knows exactly how to push back. Security reached the stage as I set down the microphone. The crowd was buzzing with excitement and shock, phones everywhere, social media posts already going live. Kathy met me at the bottom of the stage steps, tears streaming down her face. "How could you do this to me?" she screamed. "I learned from the best," I replied calmly. "You've ruined everything. My reputation, my career, my life. You did that yourself. I just made sure everyone knew about it." She swung at me then, a wild haymaker that I easily avoided. The crowd gasped and pressed closer, sensing drama. "You're pathetic," she shouted. "A small petty man who can't handle his wife's success." "What success? You got fired for lying and cheating." "I was building something. I was trying to make us a better life. By having an affair? By moving up in the world? By refusing to settle for mediocrity? And how's that working out for you?" She stood there in the middle of the crowd, mascara running, designer dress wrinkled, looking nothing like the polished executive she'd pretended to be. For the first time in months, I saw the real Kathy, not the corporate climber or the cheating wife, but the insecure woman who'd convinced herself that success meant stepping on other people. "I want a divorce," she said quietly. "I figured you might. I want half of everything. You're welcome to try. I hate you. I know." She pushed through the crowd and disappeared toward the parking lot, leaving me standing in front of 300 strangers who'd just witnessed the complete destruction of my marriage. I should have felt guilty, should have felt some remorse for the public humiliation I'd just inflicted. Instead, I felt free. The crowd began to disperse, people chattering excitedly about what they'd witnessed. Mrs. Deacon approached with a concerned expression. "Paul, honey, are you all right?" "I'm fine, Mrs. Deacon. Better than fine, actually." That was quite a speech. It needed to be said. "Well, I hope you know what you're doing. For the first time in months, I know exactly what I'm doing." I walked back to my truck alone, leaving behind the festival and the crowd and the wreckage of my old life. The sun was setting over the river, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. My phone was buzzing with calls and texts, reporters, friends, curious neighbors who'd seen the videos already spreading online. I turned it off and drove home through the quiet streets, past the abandoned factories and dive bars and pawn shops that Kathy had always been so ashamed of. This was my world. These were my people. And I was done apologizing for it. The house felt different when I walked inside. Lighter somehow, like a weight had been lifted from the walls themselves. Kathy's things were still there, her clothes, her books, her carefully arranged decorations. But they seemed less important now. Just objects that would eventually be packed away and forgotten. I went to the garage and opened a beer, sitting on my workbench and looking around at my tools and projects. This was where I belonged. Not in some trendy bistro making small talk with people who looked down on me, but here in my own space, surrounded by honest work and genuine accomplishment. My phone rang, Rye's name on the screen. "You crazy fool," he said when I answered. "I just saw the video." "Which one? There are probably dozens by now." "The one where you destroy your wife's life in front of half the city. She destroyed it herself. I just provided the venue." "Fair enough. How do you feel?" I thought about it for a moment, taking a long pull from my beer. "Free," I said finally. "For the first time in years, I feel completely free." "Good. You want some company?" "Not tonight. Tonight, I just want to sit here and enjoy the silence." "All right. But tomorrow we're celebrating. This calls for the good whiskey." After we hung up, I sat in the quiet garage until well past midnight, thinking about the future. There would be lawyers and paperwork and awkward conversations with mutual friends. There would be gossip and speculation and probably some unpleasant surprises. But there would also be possibilities I hadn't considered in years. Places to go, things to do, people to meet who didn't think I was below their level. Kathy never came home that night, or the next night, or the night after that. 3 days later, I received divorce papers via certified mail. She was claiming emotional distress and seeking damages for public humiliation. I called a lawyer and prepared for the next phase of the war, but that's another story entirely. The important thing was that I'd finally stopped being the victim in my own life. I'd taken control, made my choices, and accepted the consequences. And if that made me the villain in someone else's story, well, I could live with that. After all, everyone needs a good villain.